Hello. Good afternoon to you. This is another special family time occasion, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you. Wow, I was enjoying that song a while ago. Good evening and welcome to everyone, including those on FB and YouTube Live. My name is O'Neill Campbell, and it's a pleasure to be with you once again. It's been a little while, so hopefully you've not missed me too much, and I look forward to having a conversation with you. This, of course, is Family Time. Family Time is about your issues and your relationships, your at-home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will, of course, lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please join in via all our platforms. That's FB, Facebook, for those who don't know, and YouTube, which are live, and via Instagram. Keep adding platforms. Our discussion today is about detecting dementia. How do you test if someone has dementia? Is there a test or many tests? What kind of tests? Who administers the tests or diagnoses it? Can you just know? How do you know when your loved one needs to be tested, and where or to whom do you go? How early can you know, and can you stop it? Do you think you are getting dementia or that your loved one has it? Today, we want to help guide you along the way. And since we're on the topic, let's do this. Please tell us, what signs make you suspect you or your loved one has dementia? Again, what signs make you suspect you or your loved one has dementia? Please send your responses via WhatsApp text and voice notes, 30 seconds or less, to 876-997-3125, or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. You can also watch us on and comment live on Love 101's Facebook and on YouTube, of course. We'll be right back with our very special guest who knows just about everything to do with dementia, Dr. Ishtar Govia. Please don't go anywhere.
Yay! Get ready for an inspiring time inside Love in the Morning with me, your host, Jakal Dyer. This Tuesday, February 21 at 5:45 a.m., we give love shout-outs to some creatives and businesses that are leaving footprints in their respective fields. Grab your cup of coffee and start the day right with Morning Coffee Pick Me Up Devotional at 6 a.m. Then at 7 a.m., we bring you The Morning Watch with intriguing and thought-provoking discussions. 8:30 a.m. inside The Healthy Way, we discuss bulimia. We continue to share snippets of our final person of the week. Then at 9:35 a.m., the phone lines are open for A Voice for Hope, a time for listeners to call and share challenges faced and the help needed regarding light, water, and more in your community. Stick and stay with us. This Island Vibes Tuesday inside Love in the Morning, 5 to 10 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
This love story has been called shocking and unhealthy. It wasn't one of those fairy-tale happily ever after love stories. Samson and Delilah has gone down in history as one of the more infamous stories in the Bible. But what can we glean from their relationship to help our own love stories? Tuesday, February 21 on The Rock, join host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guests Prophet Mark Stewart and Reverend Winton Williams as they discuss the topic Samson and Delilah. That's The Rock. Tuesday, February 21 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. And welcome to Dr. Ishtar Govia, our special guest this evening. Dr. Govia, how are you?
I'm doing very well, O'Neill. How are you?
I'm fine. Please don't have my neck. You have such a lovely smile, so I hope you won't have my neck for pronouncing your name incorrectly.
No, but I realized that you caught it very quickly, so well done.
I'm a wonderful producer. Dr. Gavai is a dementia care management consultant. And I'm, of course, before I get into that, I'm very interested to know because a loved one of mine, my dear grandmother, is experiencing that, I believe. And so I'm very interested, and this is an amazing topic to hear more about. So
Mm.
I'm looking forward to it. So Dr. Gavai, of course, is a dementia care management consultant and clinical psychologist. She assists persons living with dementia and their care network with care management and coordination. Now, she was the lead for the multi country dementia care improvement study called Strengthening Responses to Dementia. That's STRIDE, STRIDE, Jamaica, which ended in March 2022. No, she does not rest at all because she's now leading. It's one of the leads. She's leads in the lead in Jamaica in terms of the site for multi-country. Um, no, she's going to correct me. Davos Alzheimer's
Davos.
Collaborative, which is a flagship project on a timely detection of Alzheimer's disease. And I believe there are about seven nations that are in that space. So now, remember, we want to hear from you, our wonderful audience. What signs make you suspect you or your loved one has dementia? Again, what signs make you suspect you or your loved one has dementia? Again, you can WhatsApp your text and voice notes 30 seconds or less to 876-997-3125. Watch us and comment live on Love 101's Facebook and YouTube page and channel, or call the studio lines 876-968-8327 to 8 to participate. Time really goes quickly, and so we're going to get straight into the discussion. Now, as I said, I'm personally interested, Dr. Gavai, in terms of what this particular topic. So please give a quick overview of what the dementia is, and speak to how persons are affected by that, or the natural thing that many persons speak to when it comes to this topic.
Sure, O'Neill. So dementia really relates to changes in the structure and the function of the brain. And this tends to happen disproportionately with persons as they get older. So as we age, it's normal to actually lose some neurons in the brain. But people living with dementia tend to experience much greater loss in terms of those neurons in the brain. And many neurons for persons who are living with dementia stop working, they lose connections with other brain cells, and eventually the neurons die. And at first, the symptoms might be mild, and then over time, they get worse. And the surprising thing that a lot of people really aren't clear about is that the changes that happen in the brain actually tend to happen 15 to 20 years before we start to see some of those signs and symptoms. And you were asking just now, O'Neill, about what those signs and symptoms are. And they're numerous. Some of the more common ones that we hear about is loss of short-term memory. So you might say something to someone and they forget what you said, or they
Yes.
ask you a question and they might ask the question 2 minutes later as if they're asking it for the first time, and then 10 minutes later, 13 minutes later. So that loss of short-term memory in particular is a key sign and symptom. Another sign and symptom that we find happening really often, particularly in our context in Jamaica, and we hear a lot of doctors speaking about this as part of the work that we're doing right now in the field, is that how they tend to know that somebody is experiencing dementia, might be living with dementia, is because they hear it from a relative. So a relative might be speaking with them and tell them that their mom or their dad or their husband or the wife or whoever it is accusing them of stealing things, just really can't figure out where things are in the house anymore. Other things that could happen in terms of signs and symptoms are confusion, particularly with time or with place. And this is not just a confusion of forgetting a date, for example. It's chronic, it's persistent, it's ongoing, and it tends to get worse over time as well. Another thing is changes in terms of how persons navigate space. So you might find that if somebody was able to drive, they might be getting more confused, they might be getting lost, they might be getting disoriented in the driving. And then another common sign and symptom is when the individual is not able to complete what was routine or familiar tasks at home. And this could be things related to cooking, it could be things related to gardening, it could be things related to odd jobs around the house. So there are many, many typical types of signs and symptoms that we see.
You know, it's interesting that the only reason why the one about driving did not speak to my grandmother was because she couldn't drive. all
Right.
the all the other symptoms are exactly what she was experiencing and is experiencing. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting that I could actually tag along with you and be a part of help in that area because I've seen it. So
Right.
short-term memory is, as you said, gone, but she remembers me or certain things from way back when I was young, or her experience with her husband who passed away many, many years ago. And she
Mm-hmm.
remembers those experiences, those situations, as I said, so clearly. But when it
Right.
comes to 2 seconds ago, 5 seconds ago, and as you said, the stealing situation, we were concerned about that because she was accusing persons, as I said, of that. And then you found
Mm-hmm.
out that that wasn't the case. But she was so adamant that it did
Mm-hmm.
happen. And in
Mm-hmm.
terms of her getting ready to dress, she got dressed up and ready to go to leave her home. And she said she needs to go home when she was home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the
Mm-hmm.
many things that you mentioned that are exactly the things that I saw. But it's interesting that I've never heard that it was years before, 15, 20 years or thereabout that
Yeah,
it's leading up.
the
So I'm
changes in
very
the
surprised about
brain.
that.
Yes,
Wow.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. And
Wow.
I think that's why the input from persons who are living with the individual or around and interacting with the individual is really key. And it's also such a tricky thing in our context as well, because as you're aging, as you're getting older, you have a sense of pride and independence, and
Yes.
you might feel embarrassed in terms of people noticing things or pointing them out to you, and you might detect some defensiveness if you're trying to bring this to somebody's attention, somebody that you
Hmm.
know, somebody that you care about. And in fact, really, some of the other signs that we tend to pick up on are these types of changes in terms of their mood, changes in terms of their behaviors. And it's really important to understand as well that this can affect their desire to be interacting with others socially. And also another important thing to pick up on as well, O'Neill, is that there are different types of dementias. So when we say the word dementia, most of us tend to think of Alzheimer's disease because it is the most frequently occurring type of dementia. And this is a dementia that occurs in where we're really losing track of the short-term memory first. So it's like a stack of papers that's standing up, and when the wind blows, it blows off the top pieces of paper in that pile. So
Hmm.
that's what Alzheimer's disease is like. And so as it progresses, the deterioration to the memories get deeper and deeper and deeper, right? But there are other types: vascular dementia, which affects the blood flow in the brain. There are types like frontotemporal dementia. You might have seen that Bruce Willis's family just
Hmm.
recently shared that he's been diagnosed with
Right. He
frontotemporal
had to
dementia.
retire from acting. Hmm.
Yes, and just this past weekend, they disclosed that it's because of a dementia diagnosis.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
So in terms of does everyone who you're noticing some signs, and of course it might be, is it also can it be too late? Because if you're mentioning 15 to 20 years, it's something that can be slowed down. And also, should someone go in as soon as you're seeing signs to get diagnosed and for them to figure out which type they're experiencing,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
can that help? In terms of,
Yeah,
is it an all-encompassing thing where all of them are pretty much leading to the same thing, or there are different things that can help each different type of dementia?
a really great question, and it depends upon what you consider as too late. So
Okay.
what is too late, right? So is it too late to have a good quality of life? It's never too late to have a good quality of life. So even if you find out late in the progression of a disease, for example, if it's at the moderate stage of progression or severe, there are still things that the individual and or that person's family members and care network members can do to help and ensure that that person has a good quality of life. And we can talk some more about that. I know that we're coming on a break shortly, but there are different things to look out for with these different types of dementias, and we can chat a little bit more about that as well.
Most definitely. All right, as Dr. Gavaya beautifully segued into our break, I think I need to do a show with her. We do it together. She's brilliant, right? So we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back with Dr. Gavaya in terms of this amazing topic, learn more about it, dementia. So let's take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Wayne, you know Flo Yardan Road now faster than ever?
Yeah, my virgin just get it.
Him love it, though.
Especially the 200 megabit speed and getting a Samsung tablet or phone for $999 plus GCT. You know you got the phone.
So, you coming home now?
Right after I pass the board.
There's never been a better time to get the invaluable value of Flow Garden Road. Sign up and get fiber fast internet at home, unlimited social, YouTube, talk and text for just $4,999 plus GCT. And save big on a Samsung phone or a tablet. Conditions apply.
Protect yourself. Read your financial contracts before you sign. Remember, you are best suited to protect your interests. You must read the contract. And if you have any questions about any financial service, ask your financial institution's representative before you take on the service. Always ask about the fees and the interest payable on any financial product. Read everything before you sign. This financial literacy tip was brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, building an inclusive economy.
This love story has been called shocking and unhealthy. It wasn't one of those fairy-tale, happily ever after love stories. Samson and Delilah has gone down in history as one of the more infamous stories in the Bible. But what can we glean from their relationship to help our own love stories? Tuesday, February 21, on The Rock, join host Bishop Harold Steve Blair and guests Prophet Mark Stewart and Reverend Winton Williams as they discuss the topic Samson and Delilah. That's The Rock, Tuesday, February 21 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to Love 101. It's family time. Remember, we're asking what signs make you suspect your loved one has dementia. We're looking forward to your stories. Please WhatsApp and text voice notes no longer than 30 seconds to 9973125. Watch us live on Love 101's Facebook and YouTube pages. And you can call the studio lines at 968-8327 or 8 to participate. And Dr. Govaya will be happy to respond to any of your queries. And as I'm hinting to our producer, she'll be a wonderful co-host at some point because she does a wonderful job of segueing into a break.
We get good cues from our producer.
So Doc, you were speaking about some of the issues there before we went into a break. You can pick right back up where you left off.
Sure. We were talking about when does it make sense to test or to be concerned, and whether there is such a thing as being too late to be tested. And this, I think, comes back to that question and that issue we were talking about in terms of how do we know? How do we know that somebody is actually having some signs or symptoms of what might turn out to be dementia? And one of the main ways that we know that is by really relying on persons who have known this individual for a while. We see this a lot in our medical profession. So a lot of persons go to the same doctor over many, many years, and that doctor starts to get a sense, even if it's just they come in once for the annual executive. So they see them just once a year. The doctor is able to see changes in the individual that might be a bit different than just a change of a year passing. And so that doctor is able to identify, for example, are they talking about topics that they don't usually talk about? Is their behavior seemingly inappropriate, or are they demonstrating some type of inhibition in their actions or their words? Are they using swear words and they don't normally swear? Are they, because that's about the part of your brain that's affected. That's the part of your brain that has to do with language and processing and inhibition as well. because this is one of the ways in which different types of dementia does affect us. And the doctor is able to pick up on these things, similar to how family members or close network members are able to pick up on specific things, such as I mentioned, whether or not this person has their behavior has changed over time in a way. And it's particularly telling if there is a family history of
Right.
Alzheimer's disease or any other type of dementia. So what a doctor will do in terms of testing and how the doctor tests really is by what we call a clinical interview at first.
Okay.
So the doctor is asking questions.
Sorry, just a second. Would
Sure.
that, sorry to interrupt, the clinical interview, if the person is experiencing dementia, is the clinical interview going to be with the person that's experiencing it to get, or is this person who's a loved one that's going to accompany them? Because I don't know if the answers will be coherent or, so how do you do that?
Again, a great question, O'Neill. And I always say we should speak about care network, because we can't ever tell if the person who is doing the caring is really a loved one, right?
Okay.
we use that term very loosely.
Lucy. Okay, yes.
But
I guess
sometimes
I guess in our mind we assume it's going to be someone that is.
Yeah, I think it's because family ties, you normally expect that family ties are filled with love, but the truth is sometimes family ties are filled with a lot of frustrations and tensions and relationships that might not have been good in the past.
It's interesting, because that seems like we're going to veer off into something a whole different topic, because it's almost as if you, the doctor, not only has to address the situation with the patient, but you also have to be assessing if this person that they're with is really means them harm or means that has good intentions. So you don't just divulge and because they can take it as using it as an advantage to negatively harm the person, maybe siphon funds or whatever the case may be, various things. There's so many aspects. So wow, I didn't even realize that you have so much governing to do to assess a situation, and it has to be done correctly. So wow, that's a bit, that's quite a lot.
And again, very astute observation, O'Neill, because and it's key, because one of the concerns as persons start to experience cognitive impairment is that they become more vulnerable. They may not remember what they're doing with their finances all the time, and somebody who does not necessarily have the best of intentions, somebody who feels that they're owed something for some other part of how they've interacted with this person in life might take advantage of that situation.
Wow.
So the role of the doctor, the role of the allied care practitioner is really very crucial. And also, I would say something that I really want to encourage our listeners about is their own role, their own agency. As persons who are young, as persons who are in middle age, as persons who are older, it's really important to speak with your doctor about who you trust with your medical information. So if the doctor has to reach out, if the doctor has to involve somebody else in your care, that they have that permission already, that they have that sense of who you rely on, who do you trust with information that is delicate, because that's really, really important in terms of figuring out next steps. It's important as well because sometimes the individual may not really realize, because of what happens with the process of many dementias, they might have a lack of insight into their own behaviors, things that they might be doing. They're doing it because, again, sometimes they've lost a sense of inhibition, and they're not really clear that this is inappropriate or unsuitable behavior, etc. So if they don't have somebody around them that they can trust, that they feel safe with, then they can feel very attacked when somebody is trying to point out specific types of information to them or steer them.
It's interesting. I'm thinking about an incident. It's really affected me. I was taking my grand, just thinking about different things you mentioned. I remember and I just thinking about the setting. I would have liked you to speak with, so just remember that speaking about the the denial, the ignorance of the possibility of having this. But it's also like, how can persons even know? We ourselves, who are supposed to be everything, all our faculties are in order. We can be in denial easily about things as well, much less a person that is having a mental challenge or whatever. So, but that's one thing. But the other thing that I remember is we're traveling. I had to take her overseas, and literally, I was sitting beside her, and then she almost like didn't know who I was and wanted to get away from me. And then she had this thing where she literally wanted to get off the aircraft and thought she was wanted to go in a taxi. So it was like I realized that at that time, so many years ago, I didn't realize something was setting in prior to. So that experience, that you can understand implications of someone who literally is losing their sense of where they are and what's happening. How then would someone of um, that type of person be able to assess now coherently that they are, in denial? Like I said, this is experiencing, and they are now to address and say, yes, doc, I agree, or don't disagree, etc., etc. I don't know where you can go with that.
Well, the truth is sometimes, O'Neill, they're not able to say that they're in denial. They're not able to say, I disagree with you in this moment, and in the next moment I'll agree with you. They don't have that level of insight. And so
Mhm. Because they've
again, this
lost
is
that too. The neurons being affected.
yes, exactly. And really we get down to the nuts and bolts of what's really crucial, which is just being good people. And so you really rely, just as somebody that is vulnerable, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who are becoming vulnerable. So just like a baby is vulnerable, and a baby is entirely dependent on the ways in
The
which
caregiver of the
adults,
person.
yes, exactly, adults are handling the baby, especially the newborns. The skull, which is not finished solidifying yet, is really relying on adults for nourishing and figuring out when to nurture and to feed
Right.
and to facilitate sleep, etc., and to give attention. Similarly, when an adult who is experiencing cognitive impairment has started to lose those abilities to do those things for him or herself, it's really incumbent on persons around to demonstrate that level of perception, that level of insight. But we can't have that unless we keep having conversations like these. Because if people don't know what to look for, if they
Right.
don't know how do I actually get this assessed and diagnosed, if the person is in denial, or if the person's main other person, for example, a husband, um,
Yes.
and I'm the daughter, and the husband is in denial about the wife's cognitive impairment and her deterioration, what am I supposed to do? If
Right.
daddy is in denial that something is wrong with
Right.
mommy, what am I supposed to do in that situation? And so
Right.
it's
Which
really
goes to
about interpersonal ninja gymnastics, and
right.
really having to think about, how do I figure out how to ensure this person is safe and this person's health is optimal.
Well, also speak to that the unwillingness to test. Not only, let's say, I don't know what level the person would be at to say they don't want to test, but let's say they can't. Let's go at that stage. Then daughter going to daddy, and daddy is unwilling to have mommy tested. What then are the next steps? If what do you do?
Well, I think the word dementia is really scary for a lot of persons, right? The term Alzheimer's disease is very scary. We talk about vascular, you talk about any type of dementia, that's really petrifying for people. But if you just say to them, when was the last time you went and saw your doctor? And if we can help the doctors really ask the questions, if we can help the doctors ask, how has this person's vitamin B intake been? Does this person have a thyroid function? Does this person have any type of issue with hypertension? Are they not taking their medications for hypertension? Does this person have any issues with sugar? And they're supposed to be on a specific type of diet for diabetes, but they're not on that diet, because all of these things are risk factors, and they're risk factors for dementia. And if you can get your foot in the door in terms of having a conversation about these other things that are risk factors, that's the best thing that you can potentially do in terms of figuring out a point of intervention.
All right, we're coming up on a break. Hold it right there, Doc. I really enjoyed this conversation. We're going to have a short clip, a Words to Flesh Moments with Reverend Mike, and the time is now 6 p.m.
Illness serves two purposes. Number one, it can grow our faith in God. And number two, give God a chance to display his power in our lives. Our Life Skills Manual guides us to grow our faith in God when it says in 2 Corinthians 4, this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal, incomparable weight of glory as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. So turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of this earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. In John chapter 9, we are told a story to help us understand that sickness gives God a chance to display his power in our lives. As Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And he healed the man. The powerful works of God can be displayed supernaturally, like the Lord Jesus Christ showed, or naturally through human comfort, as the Apostle Paul explains in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Praise be to the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Be part of God's display of power in the life of some sick person by being his hand of healing or comfort to them at this time. Are you suffering from dementia or any other illness as you grow old? Don't be afraid to cry out to God and say, heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. This is your WTF moment, brought to you by Pastor Mike of Fellowship Tabernacle Ministries.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats. They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with them, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere. But like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. Well, when you get into a good conversation, time goes so quickly and we're running out of that commodity, that precious commodity once again. So welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us. I would love for you to share your stories on what signs make you suspect you or your loved one has dementia. Remember, you can send in those WhatsApp texts or voice notes, and we'd love to share them with everyone. Doc, is there anything personally that you would want to quickly highlight that maybe you could experienced or are aware of that happened in your personal space regarding dementia?
Oh yeah, I've been thinking about that since we started talking, and because I was trying to think about this from my own experience, and this issue about detecting dementia.
Mhm.
And as I've shared with Kathy before, and I think I've shared with some of the listeners before, my own journey to doing work in this area, which has now become like my life's work, was my mother-in-law, because she was she passed in 2020. This Wednesday is actually going to be the 3-year anniversary of her passing. And when we first started to think that something was happening, it was with simple things. It was with, for example, she loved to cook, and she would love to make us Sunday lunch. She'd love to make the ackee and the callaloo, and she felt a pride in that. She felt a pride whenever we were coming over, and she had the place all cleaned up and spruced up. And on one Sunday we were visiting, and we had noticed that we hadn't been there in a while, and we had noticed that the veranda looked kind of dusty, and we said, but what a way this place is not looking up to your standards, Miss P. And she said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I have been cleaning this place all the time. So we realized, well, something is not usual here in terms of her response. And then we started to realize that even how she was preparing the meals, there was something a little bit different about that.
Because it's something she does, like breathing. So
Yes, exactly. So it was little things, very, very little things that we started to pick up. And then she used to love to do little word puzzles, for example. She used to love to play boggle. And then we realized that she started to have some trouble with keeping up with those things. She just seemed to get very frustrated by them. And then I think one of the main things for us was when we had asked her to sign something, and then she signed with her maiden name, not her married name.
Wow.
And it was a big moment for us where we said, we really do need to get some tests done. That was our initial reaction. We need to get tests done. What do we do? Because she has a strong family history of Alzheimer's disease. Strong.
You knew that before?
We knew that before.
Okay.
We knew that before, but we hadn't expected to see it in her because she was in her mid 60s, early to mid 60s. So it's not, we just were not expecting it with her. This is somebody who was just lively, smart as ever. She knew how to do everything. This was before Google Maps and these things. And you ask her, where is this place? And she can tell you off the tip of her tongue.
She was Google Maps.
She was Google Maps before Google Maps existed. Exactly. So when we thought about getting tested, we were perplexed. We thought about some specific persons to the people who are identified as the people to go to for this, but there are just one or two. Right. And we weren't sure if that was the avenue that we wanted to go down. And we also wondered, well, should we think about a neurologist? So we took her to a neurologist, but then the neurologist was asking us questions that we realized it would have been better if we had done a whole inventory of gathering her information before. Right. So, before the break, when we were talking about getting that foot in the door with the doctor's visit, that's some of the things that I would encourage listeners to do, because it's something that we should have done as well in terms of having information collated. So does this person have a family history of Alzheimer's disease or dementia? Does this person have any hearing problems, any vision problems? Does this person has been having any issues in terms of depression, etc.?
Sorry, Doc. Sorry, just a moment. Realize we have a caller. Is the caller still online? No?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead with the call.
Yes. Hello.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon.
Yes, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Winston Evans. I'd like to put in an input now. How old can anyone have it? Can anyone have it? Whether young or old, or depends, or if it's just old people, elderly people that is going up in age.
Okay, thank you. The doc
Thanks
is
for
going to
that
answer that. Thanks
question.
so much for that question. Go ahead,
Yeah.
doc.
Yes.
So
Whether in a young teenage or adult or going in a old age.
okay,
Okay,
really good
we'll
question,
answer that.
Mr.
You can listen
Winston.
out for the answer. Thank you so much.
Yes. So the types of dementias that we're talking about are ones that are associated, positively correlated with age, which means that there are types of dementias that are more prevalent among persons as they get older. So Alzheimer's disease in particular is one like that. There are some types of dementias that where we have what is called young onset, and young, especially in this day and age, is relative. But when we say young onset, we mean, for example, earlier than 60, earlier than 70. Typically, Alzheimer's disease tends to be much more prevalent for persons who are in their 80s. We tend to be seeing a lot of that. But the science in this area is still very much growing, and we're learning even more about other types of dementias that we didn't even know about. And right now, there are over 100 different types of dementias. So,
You're serious?
yes,
Wow.
yes, yeah.
Wow.
And in terms of what our caller was asking about, I think sometimes when persons see other young people, for example, behaving peculiarly, they might think that this is dementia. But there are other types of illnesses that might be psychiatric illnesses that could be associated. There are very, very, very rare cases where there is childhood or teenage level Alzheimer's disease, and that tends to be because of genetic mutations. And those genetic mutations happen in very, very few cases.
So the long and short of it is, in terms of what we've been talking about, it's going back to getting tested then. Because if there's no initial testing and you're assuming it's one thing and it can be something else, the person can be misdiagnosed or left unchecked, and
Correct.
things get set in worse than it really could be. All right,
Correct.
before you continue, Doc, and thanks so much for that response, and thanks to our caller, we have a message here from Lona Isaacs saying, both of my parents suffered from Alzheimer's. They would forget things and ask the same questions over and over. After a while, they were unable to recognize people and sometimes became confused. My hand up for that one, Lona. My grandmother is the very same thing. What I find, I don't know, Doc, if you can speak to that as well. Um, my mom and I agreed. I think it's frustrating for the person. I'm assuming because I don't know, but I think it's frustrating when we go to them and say, "You remember me? You remember my name? You recognize me?" I don't think that's right. Especially when no one having a challenge for you to be putting them on under so much pressure to try to recall who you are and be more view it. So I think persons who may, yeah, if I may, I'm speaking generally now. Anyone who's hearing, I think we should desist from trying to force a person to remember us, and saying, "You remember who it is? You remember my face?" It's going to be a challenge for them. They may remember hints, or they may not remember you at all. But I think it's an added frustration with all that they're going through to try to remind them of who you are. And that's me. I don't know what your response would be to that, Doc.
Well, in the program that we did week before last, where we talked about the caregiver training, that is one of the things that we did touch on briefly, that in terms of working with, living with, interacting with somebody who is experiencing cognitive impairment, dementia related, it's really important to try to enter into their universe and to recognize and appreciate that what dementia really does for that individual. It makes them extremely tired, extremely confused, extremely disoriented, and feeling extremely unsafe. And so if they're feeling unsafe and you're bombarding them with questions and demanding and correcting them constantly.
That's it. Yes, Doc. I've seen that as well. The
Yes.
overcorrecting, they're doing something and you're telling them, put this on, etc.
Yes.
Oh, it's so infuriating for me. Go ahead, Doc.
But this is why this detection is really important, right? So we wanted to talk a little bit about diagnosis too, and the truth is that the main way that people get diagnosed is at the point of autopsy, truthfully, in terms of
Wow.
the the brain structure and the damage to the brain,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
There are ways in which we can see now, and clinicians, when you see a doctor, they use these rating scales, and that's what we call screeners. And these screeners ask them about things like the day of the week, the month of the year, if they can draw a particular shape, if they
Hold
can
it
do.
up. Sorry. Hold it. We're heading into our final break. This is engaging. This is Family Time on Love 101, YouTube and Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. What signs make you suspect you are or your loved one has dementia? Of course, we're going to be right back with Dr. Ishtar Govia. Stick around and we'll engage in after the break.
The February 5 off 50 sales event at Home and Things is here. Take $5 off every $50 you spend. Save big on the brands you know and trust, from beautiful Spanish and Brazilian tiles to exquisite bathroom fixtures and faucets from Corona, Moen, and other top brands. Check out stylish doors, windows, paints, and home decor that inspire beauty and elegance. It's the February 5 off 50 sales event happening now. Old Hope Road and Constant Spring Road.
For all your Honda Ridgeline parts in Kingston, call 326-7371 or 821-5232 now. We sell genuine shocks, power steering pumps, engine mount, fender liner, strut mount, front end parts, engine parts, electrical switches and sensors, and many, many more. Remember, we are your Honda Ridgeline parts dealer located in Kingston. Contact us now at 326-7371 or 821-5232 for more detail.
Welcome back. It's 60 minutes past the hour of 6, and I'm being chastised. Right? Chastised for getting it wrong again. I'm thankful that Dr. Govia
Just think of it as if the I is capitalized.
Oh, the I is okay. Govia, beautiful. Dr. Govia is so gracious, right? Unlike my producer who's gonna discipline me after. But could we have that Facebook message again, please? It's a Pamela Lynch. Saying good evening to us. Thank you for this informative session. Is hallucination a contributing factor to dementia? Go ahead, Doc.
Well, hallucination is a sign and a symptom. It's a way in which some dementias present. So in particular, their dementia with Lewy bodies and the dementia with Parkinson's.
Sorry, dementia was what kind of bodies?
Lewy bodies, Lewybies. And that's a specific type of protein that can accumulate and gets in clumps in the brain.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is some of the mechanisms by which the changes in the brain are happening. So it's things like plaques, it's things like tangles, it's things like things clumping together that shouldn't be. So it's ways in which, and with those types of changes in the structure of the brain, you might have changes in terms of what the brain is telling the individual is happening or not happening. So that's where hallucinations might come in. So somebody might be experiencing visual hallucinations, or which is when they're seeing persons or people that aren't there. And some people might be experiencing auditory hallucinations. So that is certainly a symptom of specific types of dementias, and particularly for the dementias where there's a lot of sleep dysregulation. So people are not sleeping well throughout the night. And that's where you see them talking about they're seeing this person, they're talking to that little child. Now, people tend to want to correct the person who's having the hallucination.
Right. So you're not seeing that and you're not this and that.
No, that's not there. Leave it alone. But if the hallucination does not make the individual feel unsafe, if the hallucination is not a threat, like it's not telling the person to do something that is putting him or herself or anybody around them at jeopardy, play along with it. It's just like when they're talking about this relative that was there, or this memory, or going to see this aunt. It's really important that we try to, again, enter into that individual's universe instead of making them feel jarringly strange and different because they're having the experience that they're having.
Right. So they're saying one thing and you're saying no, that's not the case, and they're getting frustrated because they are believing that what's happening is there. So as I said, try to assist in that in managing that, because as soon as it comes up, pretty much not long after that they're gonna move on from that memory. But if you constantly are back and forth with them, it's gonna be a tense moment.
It can raise their stress levels, and it
there you
can
go.
certainly raise your stress levels as
Sure,
well.
at that age, yeah.
Yes.
Doc, I think you were talking about, well, after you mentioned your personal experience, you're mentioning different what's the word? You're mentioning different tests, right? Could you mention a few of those tests?
Sure.
Right.
Sure. So there are specific scales and measures that are what we call paper and pencil. So it's the doctors asking you a questionnaire, for example, or asking you to do a specific task in the room, in the doctor's office. And those can be useful because those are what we call screeners, and they can give the doctor a sense of where you fall in terms of what's called a normal range in that particular test or screener. This initiative that we're doing now, where we're working with doctors in primary care and we're working with partners, this Davos Alzheimer's Collaborative Project, is really very innovative because it's using something called digital cognitive assessments. So it's like taking the best of these paper and pencil screeners and then using these on Apple iPads, where the individual has to be asked, for example, to repeat 3 words, then to draw a clock using a pen on the iPad, and then to draw another clock, and then to try to remember the words that were said earlier on. So that's what we call an immediate recall test, a clock drawing test, and a delayed recall test. And based on the what we call the algorithms that are being generated using the artificial intelligence of technologies these days, that test on that iPad is a lot more sensitive. And it's the kind of innovation that if we're able to embed it in practices, in a regular doctor's appointment, even for individuals to do on their own at home in certain cases, or to do with like a mobile health van, if they can get information from early on, like you need to be eating lean and green, you need to be getting more sleep, you need to be doing more physical activity, you need to be thinking about your social network, about what we call the risk factors, then that could really feed into developing personalized and person-centered care plans. And that's really what we're missing right now in terms of detection and diagnosis in Jamaica and arguably throughout the rest of the Caribbean.
I can imagine how expensive that or they could be in terms of getting those devices and the in-home type of care. I know commercially it's going to be a cost, but also on the personal level, that can be a cost, but it's something that is necessary. I'm also thinking that I just remember watching some programs, and I think that persons a lot of times might be when they're of that age, they may not be a lot of interaction with persons, and that can also help to speed that process. And I was thinking of persons that I think I saw in, I don't know if it's Japan or one of those places, that because of the constant interaction with persons around them, their age and the activities, they have longer lives and their memories are a little sharper. So, I guess it's a holistic approach in terms of our re-education of how we can approach persons of that older age and kind of keep them engaged. And maybe some traumas, I'm just going from some things I'm picking up from my personal situation, that maybe some trauma, some things in the past, I've sped up the process in which they could have been better served to kind of help to slow down the process. So there's so much.
There's so much, and trauma. There's the type of psychosocial trauma with rapes and those types of things that could happen. There's also the trauma from observing or witnessing violence. There's also the trauma from being involved in accidents, car accidents, etc.
Right.
Those things can do real harm to the brain and to the brain's development, and can really affect, as we were talking about earlier, the structure of the brain, the function of the brain. And so you mentioned just now, O'Neill, that in Japan, for example, the attention to older persons and their social networks is something that you think is
Right.
really admirable. But the truth is, with interventions like these, like with these digital cognitive assessments, for example,
Yes.
what we're seeing is that, remember what we first started to talk about, that the changes in the brain start to happen 15 to 20 years before you see a sign. This is why early detection, timely detection is so important. And if we can embed these
Right.
types of early detection, timely detection innovations in practices, in doctors' offices, as part of their clinical workflow, and we can make it so that assessing for your cognitive functioning isn't something that we wait to do until somebody starts to show a sign of cognitive impairment, but we're doing it routinely. We're
Sorry, Doc.
routinely
Doc, I hope you're
checking.
hearing me. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you.
It was just breaking up a bit. So I don't know if I had to cut the camera. I don't know if it's me or both of us are, just to see if it worked. But go ahead. No, it's okay.
Yes.
Just before, there's a question that came up. I think it was from a Miss Pinnock. Was asking about depression. If depression is I don't remember. You put that back up for me. You mentioned depression. Can this cause dementia?
Yeah,
Or is it a trigger apart?
It can be, and it can actually be something that can mask, it can mimic dementia as well, because the depression or even deep anxiety can really affect your thinking. And particularly as we're coming out of COVID, and some people may be living with long COVID. Remember chikungunya and how some people have long-lasting effects from chikungunya. Now we're dealing with COVID and
Yes.
long-lasting effects from COVID. That type of change that could happen with the brain functioning, the fogginess with the thinking, which is typical with persons who are experiencing depression, typical with persons who are experiencing anxiety, and typical as you're getting older and persons in your network are dying, or you might be feeling more lonely. That depression and that anxiety could also mimic dementia. And it's important that as part of what we call test of exclusion, that we make sure that we check to see if those are the actual causes for what we're seeing as cognitive impairment, or if it's really something else.
All right, Doc. So results have come in, and if the dementia is there, what are quickly you've been mentioning it, but some steps to take. But what I really want us to close with are some words of encouragement for the caregivers, maybe the patients, persons who are watching this and are experiencing that, or persons who are close to them that can say, you know what, I've identified this and this and this, I've checked that off, and next steps. Go ahead, Doc.
I really want to encourage, we have to have a lot of compassion for our doctors, because the doctors are having to see a ton of patients in one day. And so they have the best of intentions, want to do the best by their patients, but they can't give each patient the time that patient really needs. So it's really important. I want to really emphasize how important it is for you as family members, you as persons who care about this individual, to be as prepared as possible. Do as much of the collection of the information. Make sure that you have all of this person's medications, listed, or you have photos of it, or all of the medications, that you can talk about whether or not the individual has had depression or anxiety, or is having vision problems or hearing problems. Again, things that can mask as dementia. And so when you actually get to the point where you've provided all of that information, the doctor has done this screener, there is some clear indication that there is a potential Alzheimer's disease or vascular dementia, or some other type of dementia process going on. As caregivers and as the person who is living with this, remember, you can have a good quality of life. It's just really important to figure out how to mobilize the supports around you. And I think that's why these types of programs are so important, because part of the support is giving more information and normalizing the discussions around this, and
I'll give you 10 seconds out of my clothes, Doc. I'll give it. Okay, so that's what I think. I cut your speed. I understand, Doc. We have to have you again if our producer will have you. But I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you and speaking to you, Dr. Govaya. Right. Thank
Well
you, Lord. I
done.
got it right. Right. It's a pleasure. So thanks everyone for being with us. If you have questions of a personal nature or are concerned about a friend or a family member, call us at Family Life Ministries. For our center in Portmore, it's 117 Cecile Avenue, or call 876-939-7917. For more information on our services or for our councils in Kingston and other parts of the island, contact our head office at 920-1034, 876-926-8101. Note that appointments can only be made by calling the offices. Otherwise, keep up to date with what's happening with the Family Life Ministry and our programs. Find us on Facebook, FLM Family Life Ministries, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, FLMJA. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Join us again next week, 5:30 on Love 101 Facebook and YouTube Live. Thanks again to our special guest, Dr. Ishtar Gavaya. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, Open Door Communications, studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, you are a very special guest. Stay blessed. Until next time, I'm O'Neill Campbell. Take care. Bye-bye for now.